Polls are open in Myanmar's first general election since the military coup in 2021. But the United Nations and rights groups say the process is neither free nor fair. Voting is taking place in 3 phases over the course of a month, but only in areas held by the governing military junta. That's estimated to be less than half the country, with the rest under rebel control. The military has barred prominent opposition figures from running. It's accused of stacking the ballot with parties it backs. Still, some voters are optimistic.
I know that I have to vote. I have a feeling that I have to vote because there will be peace afterward. We are displaced people, so we have to vote so we can go back to our village. There will be peace after voting quickly.
I have never voted before. I see this election as a chance to decide the will of the people. I hope this election will bring change.
Myanmar's junta chief cast his vote in the capital earlier. Speaking to the media afterwards, Min Aung Lai said the elections are free and fair. And Al Jazeera's Cheng joins us now live from a polling station in Yangon where voting is underway. So, Tony, this vote, it's obviously taking place in the midst of a civil war. And I wonder, what are the security arrangements where you are? And are you able to kind of show us around and show us how it all works?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're right outside the polling room at the moment. Let me just take you in here a little bit. There's a bit of a queue here. It's 9:30 in the morning. We've seen a fairly regular flow of people since the polls opened at 6 a.m. Not huge numbers, and it has to be said, the demographic that's voting at the moment are generally older people. We've spoken to a couple ourselves, former civil servants and former military people. A lot of them were, frankly, a little reluctant to speak, but the ones that we did speak to said that they were keen for this process to go through because they wanted to see a change in the political situation. That was a rather diplomatic answer. The other gentleman said, well, he'd just been told that he had to come and vote. This happens once every 5 years. So I think you could take that at face value if you want. Probably the suggestion there that people are a little reluctant. Now, we can't go into the room itself. The officials have been quite strict with us. They are acutely aware of the fact there are a lot of eyes on this electoral process, and they say they don't want us to impinge upon the privacy of any of the voters. But I think if we look at the exit, we can see a little bit of what's going on. The voters today have 5 votes to make for the upper house, the lower house, and for regional government positions. These are electronic voting booths, so they go in and they press a button. Not a huge amount of choice on the ballot today. And then as they come out, you can see here, they're getting their fingers inked on the little finger here just to show that's the vote that's been done. Now, you asked also about security. We've seen security here. There is an armed policeman posted on the gate. As polls opened, there was a truck with fully armed policemen outside, but it's been relatively relaxed. We did hear there was a large bomb in Myanmar, the town on the Thai border, one of the largest import sort of gateways into Myanmar. There's been a lot of fighting there recently, but we understand in most places the vote is going ahead relatively unhindered. We do know that 9 more townships, we've been told by the government that the election won't be held there. That means at least 20% of the country will not be holding elections. But we're also acutely aware of the fact that millions of people have been disenfranchised. Those are people who are living in areas that the military doesn't control. We've spoken to some of them in the last couple of weeks, some of them not even aware that there's an election going on. So I think despite the fact that this process is relatively transparent, there are still major questions about this election and whether it is genuinely free and fair.
Yeah, and Tony, the UN and some Western countries have called this election a sham. I wonder if there's any international observers who are there to monitor.
There are, and we've seen them on state television. They are from a curious list of countries. They've come from Russia, Belarus, China, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Pakistan. Now, those are countries, some of them at least, that have not an enormous amount of familiarity with electoral democracy. And I think many people will be wondering how well those monitors will be looking at this situation and making judgments about whether it's a free and fair process. This, of course, is the first part of a three-stage election. The second vote is going to take place in the middle of January. The last phase will be on the 25th. We're not entirely sure when the results will come. We've heard we're going to get some preliminary results today once all of this data has been collected, and that might give us an idea of the turnout. I think that would be a very interesting indication about how successful this process is going to be over the course of the month. But again, I think people are rather skeptical about the fact that this is happening over such a long period of time and a little dubious about what election result it might produce.
And as you've outlined, there are plenty of restrictions on who can run in this election, plus many districts won't be able to vote at all. And I wonder if there's any organized boycott of the vote, or maybe even if there's any talk on the ground where you are, Tony, of maybe people not voting as sort of a silent protest.
Yeah, we haven't seen talk of an organised protest, but I think that's because most people here who are not allied with the military or don't have active roles in the government, they're frankly not going to vote at all. They don't consider this to be a valid process, and that's because the main party of opposition, the party that has won every election since 2015 by a major landslide, the National League for Democracy, led by Aung San Suu Kyi, they're not taking part at all. They've been banned by the military. Their MPs have either fled, been arrested, or gone into exile. Aung San Suu Kyi herself is in detention at a prison, we don't know exactly where. We have spoken to people, however, in areas that the military don't control, and they universally refer to this as a sham election. They are very concerned that this process, albeit a flawed one, will give enough veneer to some of the international community to give a military government or a government led by military proxies enough legitimacy to come back into the international fold. So none of them are going to be voting, even if they could, and most of them are very aware of the fact they're not only not registered, they're wanted by the military at the moment. So again, I think we are seeing today a fairly transparent process going ahead, but the big question is what's not happening today. And I think many people will be sitting this out because they're aware that this is only going to produce a government which is very closely allied to the military.
All right. Al Jazeera's Tony Cheng there for us live at a polling station in Yangon. Tony, thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.